I think I haven't told you yet, but basically this show has the goal to break stereotypes, preconceptions, myths, like any kind of stuff like that. And a very common stereotype is that Americans are stupid, right? Like we hear it all the time, especially for me as an international student when I engage in conversations with other internationals. You can really feel that prejudice, if you want, against Americans under that point of view. So where do you think it comes from and why?
Well, me personally, I don't think Americans are stupid because I'm an American. but like, I would say like different people have different things that they perceive as like intelligence. So like, what would you say is the most common example of an American being stupid?
So I would say whenever I speak to internationals, the number one thing that like gets mentioned is like Americans don't know where Italy is, right? Which for me doesn't really make sense, just because first of all, Italian people, they don't even know where Italian cities are located, or they don't know where Bulgaria is in Europe. Like so why would an American person know, right? And then if we want to compare it, it's like, why should an American person know where Ukraine is? Well, Ukraine, right now it's more popular because of everything that has been going on. But let's say Belgium. Why should an American person know where Belgium is when a European person doesn't know where Minnesota is, right? At the end of the day, like size-wise, the States and Europe are pretty much the same space. So it seems to me like a nice comparison, right? But for some reason, the fact that Americans are not prepared in that space or in any other aspect, it resonates more with people for some reason, right?
Well, so my opinion on that is that's what I was hoping you'd say, is because I feel like a lot of people take the like negligence to know different countries and different locations as like those are people's intelligences. But like what you're saying is me being from the Midwest, the middle of the state, like I'm not really looking to travel overseas or looking to travel, honestly, like out of state, because if you go from Missouri to Illinois, like it's pretty much the same. Like there's a lot of farms, there's a lot of corn, there's different cities you can travel to and like adventure through, but you're like going from city to city where there's more American people, just like a slightly different culture. Whereas like overseas in Europe, you could be in Italy and you're close enough to a whole different country where they speak a whole different language, have a whole different like culture built up on it. So traveling is much more intuitive for you guys. I would hope you know all the countries and like know different languages and all this stuff, because you're gonna have to interact with these people on a much bigger basis than like an American would.
Yeah. So another big difference, and I completely agree with your point. At the end of the day, yes, you have some diversity when it comes to the states in the US, but to get it, you probably have to travel much longer than in Europe. Like, me being from Europe, in Italy, I'm 1 hour away from Spain, which is a somewhat similar culture, but, with his own story and with his own culture, with his own history, with his own food, with his own language, like everything. 1 hour away from Germany, which is completely different. 1 hour away from France, which is completely different. So I completely get your point and I agree with it. Another thing is, for me as an international student coming from Europe and from Italy specifically to the US, I realized that, just to give some context as well, I'm still studying at the University of Tampa, where you were as well. Right. So we're not talking about a top tier university. We're not talking about, Ivy League.
Right.
But we're not even talking about, a 500 student university in the middle of Tennessee, right?
Right.
Like we're talking about probably second, third tier university, if you consider like nationwide. And I realized that the preparation that I had from my previous studies in Italy, for example, in high school, made it so that I was more prepared than a lot of American students coming from any state in the U.S. So do you believe that maybe the stereotype, which just to make sure the message is it is a stereotype, like we're not saying it's true, we're not saying it's relatable, do you feel it has some roots on an aspect that is being talked about a lot in the last few years, which is the American education system and how it doesn't really prepare maybe students as much as other countries?
So what I would say to that is I think there's different aspects of education too, is because my high school probably over prepared me for college. Like all they said and did was this won't fly when you get to college. Like it's gonna be harder when you get to college. And then I got to college and I was like, like this is
when
easy.
Does it get harder?
Like when does it get harder? And me personally, I was in a lot of high school classes that pushed me to it's like honors programs where you're in different classes than other people that are more accelerated. So you have more accelerated and the people are more standard. And so me being in that class, I was like kind of the lower tier person who was like swimming, sometimes sleeping in class, but I was still like managing. And then when I got to college, I was like raised up because I was performing well with all these high level people and now like mixed in to reality. So I would say, there's always going to be improvement for education. And you see that a lot in like my coaching job too, is you have to be able to have people who can explain the fundamentals of everything in order to get people up. Otherwise you just end up like sectioning off, these are the good kids and these are the kids who don't really know what's going on. And then you kind of fall into that trap of people who may seem stupid, but they really just need a little more time to get things done and like actually learn what they're doing, or word it in a different way.
I was hoping for you to give that kind of response, just because first of all, it proves that it's wrong to generalize, everybody. So, all the middle schools and high schools in the U.S. don't prepare you for college. That's of course another stereotype and another myth that is not true.
If you want, I have a question for you.
Oh yeah, please.
Okay, so my question would be, like, what are the standards in order to get into education overseas, like in the USA, that like maybe you're having to face? Because of course you'd feel like everybody was lower than you if you're taking the top tier students in Italy and putting them in the US.
Yeah, I would say, I'll tell you what my personal experience was. I went to high school with focus on scientific studies in Italy, and it was a pretty valid high school, meaning that every year in Italy there's this ranking that is made of all the high school of a specific city.
Right.
And when it comes to the high school with a focus on scientific studies, my high school has been number one in my city in Como for I don't even know how many years now. So pretty valid school, and I graduated from it with a grade of 73 out of 100. So here would be like what, a C, CD maybe. And so I remember that when I was applying to the University of Tampa, they were looking at my transcripts and they were saying, "Oh, you're a C student, right?"
Right.
And I was like, "Well, yes, but you gotta put it into the right context of, I come from a very valid school where, there were some things that are unfortunately very common in the Italian school system, like the grades go from 1 to 10, but it's basically impossible to get a 10 with most professors,
Right.
right? Most professors, if you do everything perfect, they will stop at 8 or 9. So, it's not like here that giving A is normal if
Right.
the student is excellent and, does an excellent job at a specific topic. So I remember then when I got here, first of all, I had that uncertainty at the point of
Right.
saying, well, I'm a C student. Like, am I going to be a C student at university? Like, should I put more effort to prove that I'm not a C student?
Right.
And then I realized that just like it was for you, I wasn't studying as much as I was in high school, but I was getting all A's, right? So I was like, okay, the level is definitely lower from a certain point of view. And I'm speaking about a strictly academic point of view.
Right.
So meaning, for example, in math, I remember that my last year of high school, I used to do like crazy stuff. Even physics. I mean, you graduated in physics. I remember last year of high school, I used to do stuff that, probably seniors in physics do here in Tampa, right? And then I remember I got here and my first 2 classes of like accounting and finance and stuff like that, it was just basic math. So it was like 10 plus X equals 30. And many people couldn't even do it. So I was like, okay, this is different, right? I was trying to adjust to it. And for sure, I feel like there's, a different kind, a different level of preparation when it comes to like most, the background of most students. But again, I can only speak in my experience, and I think that's important because, first of all, UTampa is a very, how to say, it's a bubble, I would say. Being a private school, which means it's expensive to attend as a school, which means, most of the students who are not on scholarships like we were, and I am still, they come from wealthy families, so they might not be as hungry as others to learn and go to class. They might focus on going to the pool and other stuff, but still there was a big difference, just like there was a big difference in other skills. Like, for example, American students are much more able to speak in front of a class without any problem. For me, at the beginning, it was scary as shit.
Really?
Yeah, just because in Italy, the only times you speak in front of the class is when you are literally interrogated by the professor. So, for example, in physics, the professor will say, "Oh, you are interrogated today." So you would go like right next to his desk, and he would ask you questions about physics, and you would have to reply to him, but in front of everybody, right? And then he would give you a grade based on your responses. And that's the only time that you present or you speak in front of a class. But first of all, you're not speaking to the class, you're speaking to the professor just in front of the class.
But yeah, it's like a fear tactic to make you perform better or like study without having to tell you to study because you don't want to be embarrassed.
Exactly. So you develop a fear, as you said.
Right.
Like you develop a fear of speaking publicly, right? Well, I feel like here it's much different. Like everybody just felt, again, in my experience, very at ease when speaking publicly or speaking in front of a class.
I definitely think there's different like types of smart, and you'll see it. It's the same for everything. I mean, I'm sure you saw it when you were a coach, or when I coach or I teach. The goal of coaching isn't to like make everybody a superstar. It's to lift people up by highlighting the talents that they have that maybe you can see and they don't. So somebody like me may be a more analytical thinker, so math comes really easily, but I've had to work really hard to be able to like speak my mind clearly and write on pieces of paper clearly, and something that may come a lot more naturally to somebody else. So maybe that's a whole different aspect. Maybe the high school education isn't really rigorous on paper for Americans. Maybe it's more lenient, but the opportunities to like be in front of people, because I presented all throughout high school, like everything was a presentation, like getting up, speaking talking to your classmates, group work, all this stuff. So it's a bunch of collaborating with people rather than like no collaboration.
Yeah, yeah. And, not considering the specific situation that we are living right now with like the job market and everything, do you feel that another aspect could be that everybody, at least outside of the States, always saw the States as the land of opportunities, right? The land where the American dream, everything can happen and stuff like that. Do you feel like, or have you felt like growing up that, whatever happens, it's gonna be fine because it's the land of opportunities, and so I will be in a spot where, I can thrive and I can succeed in whichever endeavor I want to pursue? Or, like, do you feel that can push some people to, take it a bit more comfortably and say, okay, I don't have to, put as much effort as I could because I know that things are going to be fine? Because I know that from outside the US, a lot of times, the immigrant perception is, okay, I got to go to the US to make it because I know that my country won't put me in the conditions to make it, right? Do you feel that could be another factor maybe of, people say, okay, I know it's going to be fine, so I'm not going to put 100% of my effort in it?
Maybe, but I think you bring up a good point, is that if everybody sees America as the land of opportunity and like something to worship, then it's also going to be under a microscope for every single little detail. It's like competition. Like, you would always want your country to be better than somebody else's country, so why wouldn't you take the opportunity to knock it down a few pegs if like you have that opportunity to make your country look better? And I think when you're considered the best, at least for a while, when you're the most rapidly developing country of all, you're then put under a microscope for everything you do. Like, is it working actually, or is it falling through? And I say maybe. I think that you may have a point is where American dream used to be like working hard and then getting some places. But I think somewhere along the line we've kind of like dialed it back and maybe relaxed a little bit to where things aren't as rigorous for people, or maybe there's not high enough expectations. But I don't think I ever personally felt like I was gonna get somewhere for free. There's nothing's for free. Like, I swam my whole life, and that you have to get good times to get into college, to do everything. You have to get good grades to get into college. And then once you get to the real world where you're like trying to find a job, it's now not like I had the good grades, I did everything, and I'm still seeing like I have no job yet. And that's because I still need to work at it. I still need to find like skills that I can develop. I need to find exactly where like my skills can kind of fit in and how I can highlight those to other people. And then I'll be able to get something really easy. Or I need to work on my social aspect. You see a lot of people from business getting positions right out of school, and a lot of that is because connections and socialization and like LinkedIn is pushed, and so this whole social aspect that wasn't really my primary focus in school is now becoming my focus. And now I'm seeing opportunities like the swim team that I could coach, or the data engineer that I talked to recently, like teaching me about the industry, the guy that I met in the gym who interviewed me recently. And so now that I'm making connections with these people, I have so many people I can lean on to get further. And that's definitely going to be the easier way to do things, and the more intuitive, if you have somebody to trust you and that will want to teach you and see you grow and succeed.
You're bringing up a very good point, actually. So I remember when I was in my 4th year of high school, which is second to last year because it's 5 years of high school in Italy. in the 4th year, you have the option to study abroad for the whole year. And, you know, I remember there was one specific professor of mine, professor of Italian and Latin, who was incredibly against studying abroad because, you know, she like literally, she lived just for, she lived just for culture. Increase their culture, increase her culture, increase their knowledge, especially when it came to, you know, Italian literature, Latin literature and stuff like that. And so she was like, we are in the country with probably the richest history when it comes to literature, when it comes to art and history and stuff like that in the world. Why would you go study somewhere else, right? And I think that goes back also to the first question that you made. So how would you define intelligence, right? And I feel that for me especially, or for Italians, a lot of times in the Italian school system, intelligence is described or is perceived as the amount of knowledge and the amount of culture that you have. While you're bringing up a very good point, today there is a very wide variety of skills that is necessary to, you know, find a job or build a good career or build a good life, a good lifestyle for yourself, like social skills and, you know, networking and public speaking, as we were saying earlier. And so I remember that once we were having a discussion in class about that back in Italy, and I remember that a classmate of mine said, well, you know, we are the history of the world. Like, if you think about it, all the art, all the history, like it always goes back to Italy. Like there's a phrase that said, all streets lead to Rome, right?
Right.
And I said, yes, but when you look at the US, they are building history right now. You know, you cannot condemn a country just because it was discovered in 1492, while Italy goes back to, you know, before the year zero, like hundreds and thousands of years before the year zero. So you cannot compare the two just because, again, historically, one was discovered in 1492, the other one has many more thousand years of history. But the US, I feel like, and maybe that was the reason as well, the US was able to develop much more following the trend of the evolution of the world, right? And so that's why we see the US following all the trends that are leading, I would say, the evolution of the world right now. We're seeing AI, we're seeing, you know, all these new fields in which the US is still the leader because they adapt to the new conditions that, you know, the world puts us in every day, to a country like mine, like Italy, that is still very much attached to our past. And so it's like we are afraid of, you know, letting go of our past and embrace the future. So that's definitely another thing. You know, some Europeans might perceive Americans stupid because maybe they don't know that they don't know where or when World War I started. But, you know, when you apply it to, okay, is that a skill that is useful for me today? It's like,
depends on what you do.
Yeah.
Like if you're working in history, then, or in politics, like it might be important for you to understand the concept of time in each country. But for somebody who's doing like data engineering or coaching or maybe sales, it might not be that important, you know? It's kind of cool to think about too, is that you wonder why like Americans don't really travel and stuff. I mean, they do. There's a lot of people with the bug who travel all the time, but there's a lot of people like me who I'm very happy in the United States and I like it here and I want to travel eventually, but right now it's not my time. Because we're founded so late, we have so many people coming into the country. I can go to an Italian place. Is it the most authentic Italian that I can get?
Not in Tampa.
Probably not. But could I find something that is like very close and pretty authentic? Yes. Could I find like food trucks that are good Spanish food trucks in the United States without traveling to a whole different country? Yes, 100%. And I mean, you could argue that if you're taking all these different ingredients and you're putting them into the melting pot, which is the United States, and you're just stirring, if you're starting to stir, it's gonna look gross. But then like maybe once things have settled and like United States is like starting to build its own culture by mixing so many cultures, once we become established and solidified, that's when we'll be able to grow as a culture. But for right now, we're blending a bunch. I think you see it with, I mean, even Bad Bunny performing at the Super Bowl is a great example. Oh, I'm scooting out, my bad. But he's performing at the Super Bowl, and some people might not like that. But you see it in Tampa, there's so many more Spanish-speaking people because people coming from Mexico and like a country that's close. That once
and Cuba and Puerto Rico and
right.
you know, Central America.
And Bad Bunnies do a great job making Spanish music that also is recognized by American people as a good music, you know? And that's kind of a beautiful thing in itself because we're developing a culture that's not just like one way.
100%. And I remember once an Italian journalist was speaking about how a country can thrive whether it comes to its economy or, you know, its sports teams. And I remember that he gave a very good definition, in my opinion. He said, a country can thrive when it's aware of its origins and its roots, and it's respectful and connected to, you know, its past and its history, but it's also embracing, you know,
new traditions.
Yeah, new traditions and new opportunities and stuff like that. And I feel like what you said really represents what the United States has done in the last few decades, because on the one side you have, you know, the Americans, but you also have, it's probably, I don't know, honestly, I should look at the data, but I would assume it's the number one or, you know, in the top 5, top 10 countries for number or percentage of immigrants that come to the country. And so you have a blend, you have a contamination of many different cultures that at the end of the day, they represent that, you know, innovative and that push, no, to the future. So for sure, that's something that represents an advantage for the US, because again, if you look at Europe, I feel like immigration is not as well perceived. Well, maybe it's not the greatest historical period to speak about immigration in the US, but still, let's say until a few years ago, you know, when you speak about immigration in Europe, it's always about, you know, war refugees or undocumented immigrants from like other countries that where people might flee because of internal conflicts or, you know, any kind of war or conflict. And you feel from the population a sense of like, we don't want them, right? Like, they're not one of us. Instead, until, you know, some time ago, in the US, it was the exact opposite. It was like, we want to attract the best talents. We want to attract the best people that are gonna contaminate our culture. It might be changing now because we're seeing a lot of, you know, things happen.
I don't think it has, though.
No?
Why wouldn't you want people who, like, we're gonna do big things in your country?
No, I know, but would you say that the current administration thinks about that?
I think the goal of the current administration is a little bit different. I think it's the same way as if you drop an American from the Midwest, from the middle of nowhere in Italy, he's not going to want to learn your language. He won't care about your culture. He won't care about anything that it's established, and he'll just purely like move on his own. Do I think that like some people, it depends on like their perspective, but I feel like if you're going past, like, if we were going to get serious, this might need to be cut.
That's okay, don't worry.
If you're going to talk about legal immigration and illegal immigration,
Let's focus on legal. Yeah.
Right. legal immigration is a beautiful thing because you're saying, like, I want to come to this country to start my life, to create something new. And that's something that should always be celebrated. I know with the visas, it's rough right now because I think people are freaking out and they're kind of taking maybe harsher measures than need to be done. But to me personally, I don't think anybody is opposed to people from different countries coming in. I think right now it's oh shoot, like we're letting people in, but too many people are coming in, and now it's becoming like a challenge for these people to integrate, because either they don't want to integrate, or it's just wrong to like illegally bypass somebody who's been waiting to legally get into the United States. And if that process is long, then that's something that needs to be worked on. But that doesn't mean you just get to cut in line and do whatever you want, because you're taking away from the people who are genuinely interested in building a life in the United States, rather than just like coming to this country because they want to get out of their country.
Yeah. Why do you think there are so few Americans that decide to live abroad? So, for example, you said, I'm awesome living here. Like, I love it here. I will want to eventually travel and, do some experiences, but I like being here. I like living here, and I don't want to change it. What do you think make most Americans say that, and why do you think there are so few Americans who decide to live abroad and, transfer and travel to other countries?
I would say there's a financial boundary and there's like a time constraint. Like it's hard for you, you're over in America and your family is in Italy, and like thankfully you have people in St. Petersburg, but if I went to Italy right now, I have no one. I would have to call you and be like, where's your family at? So there's always that like you're taking a big leap of faith to get into a different country if you don't know somebody there already. For me, traveling has become more and more of an option because I have you, I know Johnny, I know all these people from different countries now, to where I could say, oh, I want to travel to Cyprus because I know I'll have somebody who can help me out if something goes wrong. But I also think there's the aspect to, we have so many different cultures here that you get like a taste of it. And I had lots of Chinese friends growing up. I had lots of Indian friends growing up. I go to the Indian friend's house and their house is structured totally different than mine. They would have like a temple room in their house, which is nowhere to be seen in mine. So I'm getting a taste of different cultures without ever having to go anywhere. Does that like also entice me to travel? Yeah, probably, because I'll get to see the real deal if I go to places. But getting to meet people like that is a big cultural experience as well.
And also, which it's something that you touched while you were speaking. To this day, the U.S. remains the country, or if you want to say one of the most countries with the best living condition on Earth. Right? Yeah,
Sure. Yeah. Let's go.
No. I mean,
I don't disbelieve it, but this is all I know.
And, there's many issues. We know it with the healthcare system and the nutrition system and everything. We know it. But at the same time, it's like, why do a lot of Europeans and a lot of Asians and African students come to the U.S. for college? Because the best colleges on earth are in the U.S. Why do so few Americans study in Europe? Because there are very good colleges and very good universities in Europe, but if you have a very good college and if you have the same level of college 2 hours away flying from home, or 15, why would you go to 15, right? And that goes for, again, opportunities in career speaking and career wise and everything. So I feel like that's definitely another thing that we need to discuss. It's like, again, you cannot compare the immigrants say, you know, I want to build a better life for myself, so I gotta go to the US, which eventually will put you in a spot in which, if we go back to the criteria to define intelligence that we were speaking,
right,
you're gonna have an advantage because you know two countries, you know two language, you know
right.
two languages.
Yeah.
Like you have more knowledge and
It's
you
a
have more
different
preparation.
intelligence.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, why would, like, the thing is, you know, there's always this thing of if you speak 3 languages, you're trilingual. If you speak 2 languages, you're bilingual. If you speak 1 language, you're American, right?
Oh.
But then,
That's funny. I've never heard.
whenever I think about this, it's like, why would, you know, I learned English, yes, because I was used to it since a very young age and everything, but mainly because I knew it would open me a lot of doors. I learned Spanish because I liked it, but also I knew it would open me a bunch of doors. Today, what motivates an American person, or even an English person, or even an Australian person, like a native English speaker, to learn other languages? Curiosity? Sure. You know, the desire to increase your culture and knowledge? Sure. But it's not, like, that motivation doesn't come from a need, right?
Right.
Because, again, the living conditions here, with your own issues, but the living conditions here are among the best global-wise. Right. So, I mean, that's...
Well, and when you have some of the most stubborn people in the world in your country, you get to go places and people learn how to speak English because you go, oh, I only know English and that's it. I mean, like, it's like the same if you take the American from the Midwest on a farm, that's like all he knows, that's all he does, like kind of hillbilly, whatever you want, like gung-ho American. You throw him in a different country, he doesn't care. He doesn't want to learn your language because, like what you said, there's no need. And if you're already, you have like a little aspect of your country that does learn English and speak English, then that kind of takes over, you know?
Yeah.
Because I can travel anywhere. I'm confident that I could find somebody who speaks English to help me out. And maybe there's a place that I would not be okay, but I'm probably not going to travel there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had friends in high school who studied Chinese because they wanted to do international business. And that's like a necessity thing. It's going to open you a lot of doors if you can speak Chinese because there's a lot of business in China. But there's not, there's no like, it's like what you're saying. Like if you're not thinking about going to school somewhere, then you don't really need it.
That's the thing. And, you know, for sure, I believe that learning languages, especially when I was younger, it definitely helped some kind of critical thinking and, you know, reasoning and logical abilities that I have today. They are definitely due to the fact that I learned some languages when I was, you know, 8 when it comes to English and 12 when it comes to Spanish. But at the same time, it's, again, I feel like we don't have to put people who speak a bunch of languages simply because they needed to you know, look for new opportunities. Just because, again, it's just different positions, right? If I was American, if I was born in America, it's not that, you know, I'm still the same person. I will still be speaking 3 languages. Probably I wouldn't feel the need to speak other languages because, as you said, everything is here, right? And well, the example that you made of, you know, the American farmer in the Midwest. Again, I would say you could say the same thing about maybe an Italian farmer, right, in the southern Italy. But then, when it comes to somebody who wants to actually increase the quality of their lifestyle or improve their condition of living, it's like that's just the path. Like that's the same for everything, for everyone, and it's learning English, going to the US, or, you know, to any other countries with the highest GDP or the highest opportunities in terms of career. So you cannot really criticize people who are already here, who have, you know, nothing that they did wrong other than being born here, which is not something that you be condemned for. and just because of that say, oh, you don't speak more than one language, or you don't know the history of the Roman Emperor, Roman, what's it called?
The Empire?
Roman Empire.
Yeah. English experts call it American
just because you weren't putting the conditions to have the need, or not even the need, but having the desire of, having to know about all that kind of stuff.
I think it's all about proximity, like what you need to know versus what you want to know. They definitely need is a lot higher priority than want.
100%. Well, we can conclude that Americans are not stupid.
Let's go.
Right?
I should say something stupid so that I can just negate the whole interview.
Yeah. No, but definitely Americans not stupid. Carter, friend, roommate, swimming coach, we can say. And I think we brought up some points that were really helpful to understand where the stereotype comes from and why it's wrong, and how it can be how can it be broken or overcome.
How can it? I don't believe in stereotypes. I like to indulge in them for fun, and I like to make jokes about them for fun.
No, jokes are great.
But I've never been one. I think the most important intelligence in this world is like an empathetical intelligence, or like emotional intelligence. If you're able to look into the eyes of somebody else, you're able to understand them better, or even attempting to understand them is speaks better on your behalf. So you should just, I don't approach people with stereotypes or judgments. I try to judge people person by person. And maybe it affects me sometimes, but I'm open to change and open to having my mind change. Just because I act a certain way doesn't mean that I necessarily believe in those things. And getting to know somebody is more important than believing in something before you even really meet them.
Just keep an open mind.
Right.
All right. Brother, thank you so much.
Good talking with you.
Good talking to you as well. And I'm sure that many people will appreciate and will find this helpful as well.
Hopefully.